Legion, and welcome to my channel. My name is Ludi, and today we'll be doing our EU4 1.30 starting moves guide for Portugal. In this guide we'll be going over the achievements, estates and economy, diplomacy and rivals, wars with Castile and Morocco, your missions and ideas, European expansion paths, as well as the colonization guide, which will include how to colonize and which are the best areas to colonize first as Portugal. Before we start the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like, commented and subscribed, as well as leave the bell button on. YouTube is telling me that about 22% of you guys have subscribed to my channel, so I really want to thank you so much for that. And if you're watching my videos and you enjoyed the guides, do consider subscribing. It would help me out so much. If we can get this video to 800 likes, then I'm gonna do a giveaway for an EU4 DLC or the base game if you don't have it. So let's get this video started. There are two achievements particular to Portugal. The first one is not so sad a state, where as Portugal you need to have a colony in Brazil and in Africa, and the second one is the navigator, where you need to get owned provinces in Africa, India and Indonesia before 1500. When discussing the estates, the first thing we want to do is summon the diet and go for whichever agenda best suits us. I was lucky enough to get the mission to conquer all of North Morocco, which gave me claims on all of these provinces, but it is RNG, so you're not guaranteed to get the same mission as me. Second off, we're going to seize land to get rid of the negative modifiers. Next up, we're going to give the nobility the right of council, supremacy over the crown and the monopolies on livestock. For the clergy, we're going to give oversight by the clergy and monopoly on wine, and for the burghers we're going to give the free enterprises and the private trade fleets. Most of your income actually comes from trade. In fact, about 50% of your income comes from trade, and you have a sizable chunk of the Sevilla trade node, which is quite a good trade node, but we still want to improve that, and the best way to do it is to quickly gobble up all of the North Moroccan parts, including Tangiers, which is a level 2 center of trade, but after we conquer it, it's going to downgrade to level 1. If you're fast enough, you can also take over some of the Granada lands, but that might anger the Castillians, so it depends on what kind of a game you want to have. Portugal is mainly grasslands, except for a couple of provinces here which are highlands and forest, but the rest is pretty much all grasslands. So if you want to play tall as Portugal, it's a good way of playing, I guess, but I wouldn't recommend it, since your first ideas will have to go in a different direction, and you're gonna get enough income from the New World once we establish ourselves as the first colonial great power. When rivaling nations, you should always rival Morocco and Granada. Morocco, because this is going to be one of our first targets. We want to take all of the northern part of Morocco, and Granada, we want to get them as our first humiliation target if we can, and if they don't have any good allies. If they do have good allies, or if they get eaten up by the Castillians, it is still good for us, since we get some power projection from having eclipsed them once they get eaten up or downsized by the Castillians. Now, the third rival, it really depends. There are two ways of playing as Portugal. The first way is the historical way, through which you get an alliance with Castile, which starts out as your historical friend, so they're always going to be friendly towards you, and this means we don't need to worry about our borders. We don't need to worry about somebody attacking us, as we have our mainland Portuguese land secure with the Castilians protecting it. That being said, there is a second way of playing, which is rivaling the Castillians, and by choosing to rival the Castillians, we are actually going to be going for their northern provinces here. We're going to get claims on the northern provinces quite easily. We just get a royal marriage with the English, which is going to give us 100 relations with them, and that means we can get the first mission that gives us claims on Galicias and Asturias. So we want to gun for these provinces in the north first, and that's going to be easy to get, seeing as the Castilians almost always support the independence of Sus, which is one of the disloyal subjects of Morocco at the start of the game. If you're lucky, you can get the Aragonese as an ally, and you can attack together the Castilians. If you're not lucky, you're not going to get them as an ally. A lot of the times they do ally the Moroccans, so if that is the case and that is what happens, then that is absolutely okay. Once they go to war with the Moroccans, you can swipe in and you can just take as many provinces as you can and peace out once you have the northern parts. You don't want to take the whole thing in the first war. We'll have a second war in the future that we will take the southern provinces and the island they have here, which is going to prevent them from colonizing altogether. We want to take 8 provinces from the Castillians, as we want to prevent them from forming the Spanish nation. If they do form Spain after we eat up all of Spain in the future, we can form Spain ourselves, even though it's already been formed once. The Portuguese start off as historical allies of the English. This is one of the oldest alliances in the world, as we keep getting told from the news outlets, and as such you can count on the English to help you out against the Castillians. But if the English actually go to war with the French, then you're not going to be able to count on them. You will be able to count on them in the second war in the future, perhaps. Not to worry though, the Castillians will be quite busy with the Moroccans and the Aragonese in their war. You will have the Bretonians and some Irish miners available to ally at the start. I don't recommend going for any of of these nations. They're absolutely useless and we're not going to need them. The plan is to actually start releasing vassals. We're going to take one province here in Asturias and release that Leonese vassal, which is going to have 5 cores that we can take in the second war against the Castilians. And the same with the Moroccans. After we take the northern part of Morocco, we're going to release Fez, which has cores on the other parts of Morocco. And in the second war against Morocco, take their cores back. So as such, we want to keep our Diplo slots available for our many vassals to come. The only option, if you're lucky enough to go for as an ally, is Aragon if they don't rival you. Unfortunately, that is a 50-50 chance. My game, I was not that lucky, so maybe you're more lucky than I am. Whatever you do, you will have to wait until 1447 because you start off in a regency, so you cannot attack anybody whilst being in the regency. Make sure whilst you wait that you lower your army maintenance and fleet maintenance, as well as mothball your forts and completely delete the fort in Ceuta as it is completely useless. Don't forget to also assign the explorer that you get at the start of the game to explore the African coastline here. You might as well do this whilst you're waiting and not doing anything. And afterwards you can set your ships to protect trade or to privateer in the Safi or Sevilla trade node, depending on whichever you get more income from. You also start off with the general, so assign that to your army. Bring the army to Aveiro in order to get ready for the war. And once the war starts, we can also recruit a free company, which in our case starts off with 9,000 units, so it's pretty strong, but it's going to get you over the force limit, so do recruit it once you start the war and you lose a bit of manpower so you can consolidate regiments. Whenever the Castilians are in the war against Morocco, and this can be in the early 1440s, it can even be in the 1450s, but it does trigger if they do support the independence of Sus. So whenever that happens and you see that they're not doing very well and that the Aragonese already have some lands in Castile, that's your cue for attacking. You can call in the English if they are not at war with the French, but a lot of the times they are at war with the French by now, so you are not going to be able to rely on them. That being said, make sure you put something close to you as the war target. Pontevedra is a great idea to take and declare war. Make sure that you have your main army attack and ensure that you have the free company, which is 9,000 units strong, attack as well. We want to take the provinces of vital interest for us before the Aragonese or the Moroccans do. By now we should have also discovered all of the coastline of Africa that we can discover. Ensure that you keep your troops close together as the Castilians are seriously strong and you don't want to go face to face against a Castilian army just yet. Taking your war target means you're going to get passive war score, which is what we really want right now. If we can take the fort in Burgos, that is even better, so we're going to be rushing for that fort there. You don't need to worry about getting 100% war score against the Castilians. Just make sure you get one fort so that you can peace them out, and in the peace treaty get all of the Galician province and this one province in Asturias, as well as much money as you possibly can get from them. The reason we didn't take anything else is because we are actually going to be releasing the nation of Leon as our vassal, and we're going to feed them back their cores. Leon has basically cores on this whole area here, and we want to make this our buffer zone in the next war against whatever is left of Castile, since the Aragonese are definitely going to take a big chunk of them as well. Make sure you core everything up. Also, I recommend building a marketplace in Lisbon and Porto only, since these two are centers of trade and they boost your trade income considerably. And remember to consolidate regiments so that you are not still over the force limit, and keep the mercenary army around as they have their own manpower pool, so they're not really draining your manpower. Whilst you wait for your truce to expire with the Castilians, I recommend supporting the independence of Tafilal, which almost all the times becomes really disloyal. The same thing goes for Marrakesh. I don't know why. Morocco is not lucky with their vassals. But supporting their independence means you're going to bring in the other nations that support their independence in the war. Most of the times this includes the Tunisians. So with your army and the Tunisians, you should be able to take on the Moroccans quite easily. If the Aragonese give you any trouble, don't worry. The Castilians will never give them military access, and your fleet should be considerably bigger than theirs. Make sure that you get control of the provinces that you're interested in so that nobody else gets them. By taking all of these provinces in the north, especially the fort in Tangiers and the fort in Fez, you should have more than enough war score. Even after you've destroyed their fleet, that adds a bit more war score to your side, and with this we can peace them out easily. And we're gonna ask for the 4 provinces in the north, We will have to pay a bit of extra diplo for this, but it's no big deal and it's definitely worth it. We can even get a bit more money as well from them. There will be a coalition of Tlemcen and Morocco, but we don't need to worry about that. And peace them out, abandon the other nations that were involved in the independence war, let them get killed by Morocco or whatever happens, not my problem. Make the provinces of Saleh, Tangiers, and Tetuan as a full core of yours, and Melilla, do not make it a core since we are going to be releasing the nation of Fez in the province of Melilla. Fez has a few more cores around on Fez itself and Meknes, so in the next war against Morocco we can use them to feed them back their cores. This is also going to give us the mission Conquer Tangiers that gives us permanent claims on Garb in southern Morocco. It also gives us a lot of admin points so we can finish coring the other provinces. Remember to reassign the light ships to the Saifi trade node to boost our trade income, and by now we should have around 50% of the Sevilla trade node and 20 to 30% of the Safi trade node, which definitely boosts our economy a lot. Remember to also ask from Lyon to divert trade to you, as this is increasing your trade power as well, and we'll do the same to Fez once they are a bit more loyal. Also recommend deleting the fort in Tangiers. We don't want this, it's a drain on your economy. Around the late 1450s you should be able to get your first idea slot, and of course you should be going for exploration ideas, followed up as your second idea being expansion ideas to boost up the amount of settlers and colonies that you get earlier on in the game. Later on you should also go for trade ideas, as you are definitely going to be a massive trade power that spans the whole planet. Around the 1460s your truce with the Castillians will expire. When that happens you should declare war on them with the Reconquest CB for Leon, which is going to get you an extra 5 provinces for almost no AE. Make sure that you get the province of Cantabria as well, which has the next vassal Asturias. Release Asturias and you have claims on this whole region here as well. And also remember, once your truce is finished with the Moroccans, to attack Morocco, get the cores back for your vassal Fez, and get this area for yourself to the south, consolidating thus your presence in the Safi trade node and making sure that you do have hegemony in the Sevilla trade node. Whenever you get a chance or whenever you feel that you're strong enough, you can attack Granada, especially if they only have the Tunisians as an ally. It's not a massive issue. You can take both out. Your fleet should be strong enough to take the two of them. And I recommend just directly annexing Granada, but it is up to you. If you feel like it's a better idea making them a vassal, you can do that. I don't recommend it simply because they don't really have any cores that you can push for, and it would just be a waste of a diplo slot when you can release Asturias and other nations around the Iberian Peninsula. Now that you have more than 2 subjects, also get the strong duchies privilege. When discussing the Portuguese missions, the initial missions will focus on getting you claims on Castile. By getting a flagship, we're gonna get permanent claim on Leon, Extremadura, and Lower Andalusia, basically this area here in the center and in the lower part of Castile. The previous mission that we did at the start got us the claims in the north, and getting our navy to 100% force limit gives us the claim on Tangiers, which we already own. That leads up to the conquest of Tangiers and expand the buffer zone by getting these areas here. The center part of our missions will get us claims on all of the Iberian Peninsula, so if we want to go for that and we want to have a Lusitanian empire, we can do that, and eventually once we do own the entire Iberian Peninsula, we can change our government rank to empire. The majority of our missions, however, will focus on colonization, with the establishment of our first colony in the African area here after we get our first colonist. Then it's going to ask us to go westwards, go in pretty much every direction after we get colonies in the South, Central Americas, as well as African, Indian, Middle Eastern, and Asian areas. We're going to have insanely good ideas that give us either cash or colonist, settler chances, permanent boosts, or even give us some amazing events that let us buy provinces directly from either the Japanese or from the Chinese. For example, the purchase of Macau and the purchase of Hizan. So playing as the Portuguese, you really need to focus on establishing a colonial empire and having colonies everywhere in the world. Most new players, I recommend actually allying Castile instead of attacking and eating them up. But for experienced or mid-range players, I recommend eating them up, since they are competition in the new world and you don't want to have that competition, since it should be easy enough for you alone to just colonize everything. Also, establishing yourself in the Sevilla trade node and eating it up completely means that all of the amazing trade coming in from the new world eventually will be eaten up by you 100%. So now that we have our very first colonist from getting the second idea in the exploration ideas group, we can start colonizing. Before you start colonizing, go to your stability tab and ensure that you select your colonization policy. You have 3 policies: native coexistence, that means the natives will never uprise; native trade-in policy, which is going to give you 50% chance of native uprising; and the native repression policy, that's going to give you plus 20 settlers, but this is going to make the natives very angry. So if you want to colonize in a province, for example, such as Arguin, which has 5,000 natives and they're very aggressive, then you're going to have to send an army to quell the rebellions whilst you're colonizing. If you are using this tactic, then make sure to send your free company, which costs almost nothing, has their own manpower pool, and even though you're keeping your full army maintenance to 0, you're still going to have the mercenary company at full maintenance because you cannot lower the maintenance on the mercenary company. You're also not losing your manpower since you're using the mercenary company's manpower. The first colony that you want to have is going to be either in Arguin or in the islands of Cape Verde. I recommend Cape Verde since you have no natives, so it's easier colonizing them. And getting Cape Verde is going to get you access to all of the South American coastline here, even up into the Caribbeans, since you have the Azores already colonized. The reason why you should colonize either Arguin or Cape Verde first is because after we get this first mission, our second mission is going to be to colonize the West African area. That's going to give you an explorer and 60 diplo power. So we really want to get this mission done as soon as possible, and in order to get it done, we have to colonize one of these 2 provinces. If you're new to the game or new to colonization, you might be wondering, how did you discover all of these lands here? Make sure that you have an explorer and one of your fleets. I recommend a fleet that includes the 3 Karaks that you start off with, which are the heavy ships. Put the explorer in it and then right click on whichever area is not explored yet, and it's gonna ask if you want to send a fleet to explore this area. In order to explore unknown land, however, we're gonna have to send our army and we're gonna have to have a conquistador. Conquistadors are basically the same like generals, but they have the ability to explore terra incognita land, which is land that we don't know about. And let's send him, for example, to the South American colony. Make sure you have enough transport ships to send them there, and whilst he's being sent there, I'm gonna start colonizing the Cape Verde colony. Make sure you click send here so that your colonist is gonna start colonizing the province. It's gonna take a few days for him to reach there, depending on the distance between where the colony is and your country, and once he arrives, he's gonna start the progress of colonizing. Keeping this colonist here is going to give you the settler chance. You can recall the colonist and can send him to a different area, so he can colonize 2 of these provinces at the same time. But if you colonize more provinces at the same time than you have colonists, then it's going to start costing you colonial maintenance a lot more than it would otherwise. And our conquistador explored the Rio Grande province. Once we finish with our Cape Verde colony, we can send a colonist in here, and if you never want to have problems with the natives, you can click the attack natives button, which is going to cost a bit of military mana points, but you can click this and kill off the natives. This also means that you will never have to worry about natives, so you don't need to keep any troops here guarding the province. Instead, you can hunt for the 7 cities. Clicking hunt for the 7 cities means that they automatically explore the whole continent, and you get a chance of discovering where the 7 cities are, which is going to give you a boost to various things. You can even discover the Fountain of Youth. Make sure you send your fleet back to a harbor, otherwise it's going to die out because of attrition. The first colonial regions that I recommend exploring and colonizing are going to be the Caribbeans, followed up by the South American part, after of course you got 1 colony in either of these 2 provinces here. After you've gotten the first initial colonies in here, I would also recommend making your way colony by colony around the African continent and into India, the Middle East, and Asia. Thank you guys so much for watching this guide. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as well as leave the bell button on. And I want to thank my patrons. If you like to become a patron, then check the link in the description, and until the next one, have a great day.